cheat code. It's time to set your lineups with CBS Sports' Dave Richard.
Okie dokie, Artichokes joining us right now from CBS Sports. From the East Coast, the one, the only, the foremost expert in fantasy football in all the land, David Richard. Good morning, Dave.
Dave, good morning. Good morning to everybody there in Sacramento. It is fantasy playoff time. And I know that there were questions about George Kittle going into last night. Hopefully they're all answered by now. He is still a great tight end, both in fantasy and in the National Football League.
Now, for you, is that if you're a fantasy football person, hold on a second. There we go. If you're a fantasy football person and you're now in those playoffs, and let's say maybe you have, obviously if you're dealing with a Kelsey Kittle combo, whatever, maybe, I don't know, David Njoku. I don't know. Are you still running matchups? Are you confident Kittle's that guy the rest of the year?
Well, I think the one worry is it going to be that open? Like a little bit had to do with the fact that they're playing Seattle and just a defensive breakdown. I guess both coverages or both touchdowns, I should say, there was a defensive breakdown, but really that second one, I don't know what they were thinking. So that is a little bit of a concern. And I would venture to say that because of the offenses that they play in and the targets that they get, Kelsey, no-brainer. And I think Njoku is more of a no-brainer than Kittle is too, because he gets so much volume from game to game, and he's really earned it this year. The issue that you've got with Kittle, think of it this way. Imagine if George Kittle did what Brandon Ayuk did on Thursday night, where Brandon Ayuk, only 4 targets, only 2 catches, very much a bad game for fantasy, didn't contribute to help the 49ers win. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that 49ers built a lead, didn't have to chase points, didn't have to stay competitive on the scoreboard. Brock Purdy didn't have to throw a lot of attempts. That's exactly what the 49ers want to do. They want to make sure that they're in a position where they're playing with the lead. They've got the defense where they're going to be in that spot a lot. And so that makes Kittle, yes, if you've got him and your next best option is Tyler Conklin, what are you doing? Of course you're starting George Kittle. But if you've got Kittle and Njoku, I do think you've got a tough matchup to consider for each of them each week, and hopefully you picked right this week.
Dave Richard with us. First question. Lamar Jackson is hurt. I got to make a choice. Wow, you can tell this. We're getting out of the nitty-gritty here. Jared Goff in New York against the Jets, or Mike White at home taking on Detroit, assuming he plays.
The same game, and we are assuming that Mike White's he told the media that he was going to play. He sounded fired up about it. And this Lions defense, I think it's only 4 quarterbacks all year haven't had at least 22 fantasy points against them. One of them was Bailey Zappi, and another one was Dak Prescott in his first game. Trevor Lawrence had 18 points against him. It wasn't a great game. He had a bunch of turnovers. I'm starting Mike White. I actually am ranked 10th this week, Dave.
Wow.
Fully expect him to throw a lot. Yeah, the Jets want to put the ball in the air quite a bit. I do like Zonovan Knight, and part of the reason why I like Knight is because he's a pass catcher. He can work in that passing game and help out Mike White. They've got confidence. They've got really good receivers there. Garrett Wilson's a must start, and that Lions defense. Their pass rush has gotten better, but their secondary is still pretty bad.
I imagine you're going to get questions about this. You already have, and I imagine that you would lean against at least for a matchup against the Commanders and that defense. But looking after that, in Vegas, home Arizona, do you see a situation where you might actually recommend, if somebody was desperate enough, Brock Purdy to start in the playoffs for a team?
Well, it depends on what your playoff situation is, but yeah, you're looking at the matchups against the Raiders and the Cardinals and their secondaries. Especially both of them, honestly, Dave, it's both of them.
Yeah,
terrible defending the pass, especially inside of 15 yards. So they're defenses that like to bend but not break. You've heard that term 100 times. And it's really true in the case of Arizona, but it's also true in Las Vegas. Vegas's defense breaks all the time. I mean, look what Baker Mayfield just did. I think that Purdy could be a potentially good start in those games. I just don't know what the situation would be. Like, someone would have to get hurt for you to go, oh crap, now I need a quarterback to play in my fantasy final or semifinal, whatever it is for your league. And you go to your waiver wire and Brock Purdy's there because he's already gone in super flex leagues and in 2 QB leagues. He's already gone in the deeper leagues. But when you're playing in the fantasy championship, you're probably playing there because Mahomes or Jalen Hurts got you there. And you're not about to pull those guys out for Brock Purdy.
We disagreed a little bit on the whole quarterback scoring system a while back. I assume you and I are both in major agreement that Week 18 Super Bowls in fantasy football are garbage.
I don't want to use the term garbage because that would offend garbage.
Right.
But you know how it is, man. In the NFL, half the teams are, half the players are either packing their bags.
I think it's right now. Hey, we've been
changing the game, and the other half they're resting because they're playing in the playoffs the following week. So I don't like using the last week of the NFL season for an impactful fantasy game, but I do like to have fun, and I love to set a lineup in general. So I might do some type of like bonus prize at the end of the year, or just one more, free for all with everybody in my league. But I don't want to put the championship, the holy grail of your fantasy league, on the line when Patrick Mahomes isn't going to play the full game or even play at all. Or same thing with Philadelphia. They're cruising toward the number 1 seed in the NFC. They're going to have nothing to play for in week 18. They're taking on the Giants. They have no reason to get those guys ready to go in a game that the Giants might not even need to make the playoffs because they might be out of it by then.
I always forget what to call it, whether it's a survivor league or whatever name you put on it. And I imagine you're in every type of league ever, so you do this. But one thing I've really enjoyed over the last few years is we will do in one of my leagues an alternate league where you draft a lineup at the start of the playoffs, and then it's just a matter of you're choosing between best players and teams that you think will be in the Super Bowl. You get to the Super Bowl and you have 2 or 3 guys left. You're scoring against guys that have had their players knocked out. I forget what that's called, but I am curious if I imagine you participate in a couple of those.
We have toyed with the idea of doing such a thing. They're basically called playoff challenge leagues.
Okay, yeah.
We've toyed with the idea of doing one that actually starts in week 18.
Oh, really?
So check this out. Week 17 ends.
Uh-huh.
You do it. You have a draft with your buddies.
Yeah.
And you draft players, and it's thrown into chaos because you're not sure. You're basically drafting players on teams who you think will not have a first round bye and make the Super Bowl.
Oh my God.
But by the time you get to round 6, those dudes are gone.
Yeah.
And so then what do? You're picking players that might not even make the playoffs. And so imagine, let's say the Giants are playing for something. Let's say the Giants and the Eagles are playing for something in week 18 and the Eagles win, knock the Giants out. Your Saquon Barkley pick is terrible now because you can't use them the rest of the way.
Jeez, I'm honestly stressed out thinking of that because you want to rack up. Maybe you have a team, like you said, playing for something. You want to rack up some serious points in week 18, but now you guys gone, man. Or in the other scenario, he's on a bye that week. It's a very stressful league, Dave.
Well, it's supposed to be fun. So if you're stressing out, then you absolutely you should go take a walk in a park or swim some laps in a pool. Don't play fantasy if it's stressing you out.
One last question before we go to break. Oh dear, Raheem Blackshear, David Montgomery, or Antonio Gibson?
It's Montgomery,
yeah.
And I don't know why Blackshear is on your team, unless you've got like Deontay Foreman and you want to have an insurance policy in case Foreman goes down. Well, in which case, I would ask, where were you when Chuba Hubbard was a thing? Right. So Montgomery's the one that's going to play a lot. That question is going to be ugly to answer next week when Khalil Herbert is back. Yeah. The Khalil Herbert who's out there in more than half of CBS leagues, by the way, and could end up being a league winner, and you can just throw him on your bench now. I'm just saying.
Look at that nugget right there at the very end. Where can people get all those nuggets that they look for from the great Dave Richard today?
Always on Twitter at Dave Richard. Happy to have you follow me there, and I try to answer as many questions as I can during the week. And also on our podcast, Fantasy Football Today, which is available wherever you download your podcast. We are also going to be live at 9 a.m. on CBS Sports HQ, going over the Saturday games. There's 3 Saturday games tomorrow. Did you know that, Dave?
I did.
Did you know that there are 3 big Saturday games that are going to help determine who advances in your fantasy league? I hope you did. So you need to get your lineups really ready for those games, and we're going to help you do that starting at 9 a.m. on CBSSportsHQ.com.
You're the best. We'll talk to you next week. Take care, brother.
You got it, guys.